a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls. 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretary. The one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. And it was their fear that if I remained in the black Muslim movement, and this came into the knowledge of his followers, that they would leave him and follow me. A plan immediately was set in motion to take me down, put me out. And the statement that I made about Kennedy was used as a pretext to take me down.
Did you get out? What will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it. And that's all.
Well, there we have it. Peace, family. Peace, 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 family. This is QI Critical Thinking back in the building again. And today we're going to talk about Who Killed Malcolm X, the television series, the documentary series on Netflix. And also that, they're reopening the case after 55 years. And I'm going to try to give the most comprehensive breakdown that like anyone I've heard has given. Shout out, hello, reasoning is key in the building. Hello. All right. So as you heard, and I'm going to play it one more time for, the people who came in a little late. But as you have heard, the Nation of Islam files a lawsuit to reclaim possession of Malcolm X house in Queens, New York. This is the document. This is the clip from that. And this is like one of the most explosive comments that Malcolm X made about Elijah Muhammad. And then I'm going to go into breaking down the movie. I just want you to hear this little part of the clip again. After a court appearance regarding the evidence, Malcolm divulges explosive searches.
Stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls.
8 children by 6 different teenage girls. Okay. So, that was a part of some of the reason that there was conflict. But let me just not go too fast. And I like to shout out Lori, aka Lolo, in the building. Thank you. I'm glad to be covering this too, because I want to give people a comprehensive breakdown of what happened, not just bits and pieces and not a biased commentary on what happened. So I may be breaking this down into I'm definitely going to cover the review of the movie in detail today, but there's some other things that I want to bring to the table as well. I made sure I watched it once, 1 or 2 times to get, as much information as possible. And I did a little research. All right. Now, because of the Netflix documentary, the case of Who Killed Malcolm X will be reopened for another look. Let's talk about it. Let me go to this article. Let me go to this article and read verbatim, and that's only because of journalistic integrity. And because this case is now under investigation, I want to make sure that, that I say things verbatim. I don't want to, start any narratives. And whenever I do put in my opinion, I'm going to make sure I say in my opinion. All right. Okay. I think this is it. And I'm going to screen share this one. And all of the links that, in case any of you want to cover this as well, I provided all of my links in my descriptions tab. So, just go to my descriptions tabs and you'll be able to find the links to everything that I'm currently speaking of. Okay. And this is an ABC, news, I don't want to say clip, article. This article is from ABC News, and the document is entitled "Documentary Raising New Questions About Who Killed Malcolm X." And this article is, I believe, from yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I might be a little wrong on that one. Okay, all right, from February the 10th. Okay. The New York DA's office has said they will begin a preliminary review of the matter in light of a new Netflix documentary which casts doubt on who killed Malcolm X 55 years ago. Okay. So because of the documentary of Malcolm, and give me just a moment here.
The official count of who killed Malcolm X, it's not true.
An explosive new Netflix documentary casts doubt on the assassination of Malcolm X 55 years ago this month. Now, the Manhattan DA's office says it will begin a preliminary review of the matter, something that will determine what further investigative steps may be undertaken. Malcolm's family has always wanted to know more.
It's important to get answers about who gunned down my father.
In a brazen attack, Malcolm X was gunned down in front of his wife and children while giving a speech in Harlem.
We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Malcolm became an even more controversial figure after his public falling out with the Nation of Islam.
I do believe there'll be 10 on my life.
3 members of the Nation of Islam were arrested and convicted of Malcolm's assassination in a case that raised questions from the start. One confessed and maintained the other 2 were innocent. Historian Abdur Rahman Muhammad says the alibis of 2 of those convicted were ignored.
And the thing is, children weren't even in the Autobahn bubble that day.
One of them died in 2009, maintaining his innocence. Another, Muhammad Aziz, released after 20 years, is now 81 years old. His lawyer and the Innocence Project say they're grateful the DA is taking another look at one of the most high-profile murders in U.S. history. Rahima Ellis, NBC News, New York.
All right, fair use, fair use. This is under the Copyright Act and Fair Use Act for educational purposes and commentary purposes. All right, so you heard it. Okay, so the Manhattan DA's office will begin a preliminary review of the case. This will determine what further investigative steps will be taken. Malcolm's family has been searching for these answers for over 55 years. I remember one of his daughters chin checking Farrakhan and about telling him that he knew actually what happened and why wasn't he sharing the truth. Now I meant to find that clip to bring forward to show you all, but I'll show it and I'll possibly put it in the descriptions later. So check the descriptions tab later. But one of the daughters chin checked Farrakhan last year. It was around Martin Luther King's birthday, the one that they show on the documentary where it was raining. And she chin checked and she was asking for, pressuring Farrakhan to get the answers because she said she knew that they had something to do with her father's murder. And, we've always heard that the Nation of Islam, had something to do with the murder of Malcolm X. However, Malcolm X family has been searching for these answers for over 55 years. So imagine that. Imagine not knowing who killed your father. And then imagine not knowing if the killer was still out there, if the killer, it was going to come at them next. And, just knowing that your father had not had, proper justice, for one thing. So that's, some of the feelings that the family had felt. And whether or not the 3 men, who served time were the correct killers of their father. You know, at that time they didn't know whether or not the three killers were the correct men of the father, because Talmadge told them from the beginning. Hagan told them from the beginning that, you know, like, yes, he was responsible. He admitted to his guilt, but he said the other two men were innocent. He said that during trial, but he was ignored. Now, Talmadge Hayer, now, and where is Thomas Hagan today? Okay, I'm gonna read this article, and of course, I'm gonna screen share. I think I forgot to unscreen share before, so give me just a moment so I could pull up the right one. And I'm gonna read this. So I'm gonna break this down a little bit at a time. Y'all just follow me for a minute. I guarantee when you finish, you're gonna have a comprehensive overlook of what, you know, actually is going on, with all the details and a little more. In my opinion. Okay, so here we go. His name, the guy who told them that the two other men, and those two other men were from the New York mosque. Talmadge Hayer was, of course, from the Newark, New Jersey mosque, mosque number 25. Okay, and he told the law enforcement in court, as well as, you know, like he also later wrote a letter to his attorney stating that those two other men were innocent. So, you know, like, he was trying to get them freed. He said that he thought that, you know, that they were going to end up, you know, like, releasing them initially when he was under investigation, but he said he knew that, you know, like, he was guilty of the crime. And if you watch the documentary, Talmadge Hagan was the one that they had in the handcuffs. He was the one that, you know, like, got shot or got hit by the chair. Okay, so Thomas Hagan was convicted of assassinating civil rights leader Malcolm X. The 1965 assassination is being re-examined in the new Netflix documentary "Who Killed Malcolm X." The documentary raises serious questions about the murder investigation, especially involving two men who were convicted as being Hager's co-actors, but maintained their innocence. Where is Talmadge Hayer, aka Thomas Hagan, today? Because his name was originally Thomas Hayer. Okay, then it changed to Thomas Hagan. He changed his name to Thomas Hagan, and now, of course, he goes by his and later on he went by his Muslim name. Now, that was something else that I was going to look up. I was going to look up, was he still living, because I couldn't remember whether they said that Thomas Hagan was still living or not. So I'm going to try to look that up before we're off the live today. But Hagan is now a free man. Hayer, the only man who admitted to the murder, was released from prison in 2010, according to CNN. At the time of the murder, Hagan went by the name Talmadge X Hayer, as the documentary shows. He was shot in the leg during the assassination attempt and captured at the scene. He also used the name, here it is, Mahajid Abdul Halim. And let me just, you know, I'm not going to say my Arabic pronunciations are just that well, but here it is, Majahad Abdul Halim. I do know some. And here it is right here. So, like, feel free to correct me. And I apologize, you know, like, if my pronunciation was not correct. But over the years, he has implicated 4 other men as his accomplices, but they've never been charged or arrested for the crime. So there was 3 men arrested. It was Talmadge Hayer, now known as Thomas Hagan, and then and also his Muslim name is Mujahid Abdul Halim. And then there was 2 other ones from the New York, and Talmadge was from the Newark, New Jersey mosque number 25. The other 2 were from the same mosque as Malcolm X, which was the mosque number 7, which was in Harlem, New York. Okay, now the only one of them died. Khalil Islam who was also known as Johnson, he died while he was in prison. Okay, and Muhammad Abdul Aziz, who was Butler, is still living, and he's also in that documentary. So Butler Aziz, Muhammad Abdul Aziz is amongst the only one living. Okay, so let's now that we have that straight, so like they arrested 3, and then 2 of them, but there were actually 4. And the 2 that was arrested was not guilty. And Hayer, told them at the time of the crime that they were not, with him. They were not guilty. Okay, Hayer was paroled in 2010, but was already out on work release. Okay, and here's Hagan's information is public record. Inmate name, Thomas Hagan, male. It's got his birth date, race, ethnicity, released, housing releasing facility, Lincoln. He was released, county of commitment, New York, and he was paroled on April 28th of 2010. In 2010, CNN reported that Hayer, now called Thomas Hagan, had been paroled. He walked out of the minimum security Lincoln Correctional Facility at 11 a.m. The facility is located at the intersection of West 110th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard, the cable news network wrote. So the facility that he was imprisoned at was located on at the intersection of West 110th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. How about that? Okay, he was already on a work release program since 1992 that allowed him to live at home with his Brooklyn-based family for most of the week. CNN reported, adding that he hoped to become a substance abuse counselor. The New York Times reported that he was previously turned down for parole 16 times before finally being granted release. I have deep regrets about my participation in the murder of Malcolm X. He told the parole board, Malcolm X murder, according to CNN. I don't think it should ever have happened. Prison records confirm his release. He confessed to shooting shots that hit Malcolm X. And there's a picture of Malcolm X at the Audubon Ballroom, which is located in Harlem, New York, still currently to this day. And this picture is circa 1962, American political activist and radical civil rights leader Malcolm X, 1925 to 1965, standing at the podium during a rally of the, I don't like to say African-American, but because it's here, African-American Muslim held in Washington, D.C. area. He is wearing a formal jacket and a white bow tie. In 2008, the New York Post reported that Hagan was working in a fast food restaurant, describing him then as a slim-framed 66-year-old sports spectacle and a neatly trimmed gray mustache. He wears a baseball cap low when he's out in public and speaks softly, barely above the whisper. You know why that is, because that had to be one of the most embarrassing, let's just think about something, family. To be known and to be known as an admitted, confessed killer of Malcolm X is nothing to be taken lightly. Even to this day, you would have to say that, like his life still would be in some type of jeopardy or some type of danger, because, there are like a lot of people who, like really admire Malcolm X. So, that alone. And let's also take this moment to think about the 2 innocent people from the New York mosque, Azid and which was Butler, and Johnson, Muhammad Abdul Azid and Khalil Islam, which was Johnson, who were innocent and accused. Let's think about the dynamics of their family situation. Especially if their family was Muslim. And then most of those communities, like in Harlem is a predominantly we're going to say Black cultural city or area. And, they're infested, and I don't want to say infested, but they're, they have a lot of Muslim family and Muslim community, Black Muslim community there, as well as Newark, Newark, New Jersey. So like in areas like that, or cities and states like that, you're going to have where there are those mainstream mosques, you're going to have a higher saturation of, Muslims, Black Muslims. Okay, so let's look at that. So, it's not easy walking around, being known as a person, or being assumed as a person that would have murdered like one of the biggest, one of the biggest, Black political activists in that area, and nationally. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Okay, so he was married with kids. He was at the time of the shooting a militant, a Nation of Islam member, and 23 years old. He was 23 years old at the time of the actual murder. In 2008, he told the Post that he was not a Nation of Islam member anymore. So he's no longer, in 2008, he denounced his membership to the Nation of Islam, although he remained a Muslim, saying it was really a correct it wasn't really a correct ideology. So he was saying that he no longer agreed with the ideology of the Nation of Islam anymore. There are a lot of misconceptions. He earned bachelor's and master degrees in prison. The Post reported he has also worked as a homeless shelter counselor. According to the ABA Journal, Ayer has long maintained that the two other men convicted in the assassination were innocent. They are Muhammad Abdul Aziz and Khalil Islam, otherwise known as Thomas 15X Johnson, which is Khalil Islam, and Norman 3X Butler, which is Muhammad Abdul Aziz, which is the one still living. Now, Khalil Islam, Thomas 15X Johnson, was killed while, not killed, but he died while in prison. Ayer filed an affidavit in 1978. So in 1978, Ayer filed an affidavit saying that the four other members of a New Jersey Nation of Islam mosque helped him commit the assassination, but the case was not reopened. See, during the whole time, like I'm saying, Ayer kept telling them that those two men were innocent, and there were four, not two other, but four other men. And he told them specifically what mosque they came out of. They came out of the New Jersey mosque. Muhammad Abdul Aziz, once again, came out of the New York mosque, and Khalil Islam came out of the New York mosque number 7. And that was the same mosque that Malcolm X, also, was frequent to, was, a minister to. However, in the wake of the Netflix documentary, the Manhattan DA's office is doing a preliminary review of the convictions in the case. He also partially named the four men in what are called the Ayer affidavit. So the affidavit is called the Ayer affidavit. I do have, that through Wikipedia. I did put that in the description tab. So if any of you are going to do any reporting on this, you can find that in the descriptions tab. And, I'll, we may go over there in a moment. Let me just take a minute to say a few things to the chat, and forgive me, family, because I'm not really reading the chat because I want to get through all of this information. Yeah, they did 20 years. Hey, Empress in the building. Won't tell you. Hello, won't tell you. For everybody who comes through, like, share, and subscribe. And peace to the family. Love y'all. I'm gonna, take a few moments or something to look over at the chat from time to time. But I'm really gonna be focusing on getting this information out to y'all. Monica G. Davis in the building. Hello. All right, so fam, let me get back to it. Hey, won't tell you. Okay, the documentary builds on Ayer's affidavit. So thank God to Ayers for actually doing that affidavit, even though, because like a lot of times, when we're unheard, we don't, like he had been saying this, since the trial, and he actually said that he thought that they were going to end up releasing the other two guys for lack of evidence. Okay, but they didn't. It's like it's like what according to the Netflix documentary, it's like because they had enough evidence on Talmadge, Thomas Hagan, they just included the other two men in that same evidence, you know, without looking at it one-on-one or in an individual one-on-one basis. They just automatically included that, and they ignored him telling them that the other two men were not involved. And it took him a minute though, but he finally came out with that there were 4 other men, what mosque they came from, and their names, you know, at their names at the time of the crime, which were all like the names, you know, that you get before, you know, you actually become officially Nation of Islam. Okay, the documentary builds on Ayer's affidavit. For years, researchers have accused William Bradley, now called Al-Mustafa Shabazz, and he's an interesting character, and we're going to get to him a little later. I don't want to go too fast, but just remember this name, William Bradley and Al-Mustafa Shabazz. For those of you who saw the documentary, you're quite familiar, but for those of you who didn't, we're definitely going to fill you in a little later. But William Bradley of being the suspect who fired a shotgun at the scene. William Bradley was also the one that Talmadge named as William X at the time. Okay. Killing Malcolm X. So the actual killer, according to Talmadge, would have been William Bradley, because he was the one with the shotgun, and the shotgun was actually the one that was the actual shot that killed Malcolm. That was the actual shot. So the actual killer, although all of them shot, they had 3 different types of weapons. They had a mullet, I believe. They had a Moger. It was a shotgun, and there was a 45. And I think that Talmadge said he had the 45. William X had the shotgun, and the Moger belonged to one of the other members, one of the other 4 members. Okay. So the person who actually fired the killing shot was William X, also known as William Bradley, and now referred to as Al-Mustafa Shabazz. Okay. In 2015, the New York Post called Bradley a then 76-year-old ex-con who lived in a gated 2-story home in one of the nicer neighborhoods in Newark. In 2010, he appeared in a campaign video for Newark Mayor Cory Booker. That's right, family. The picture, my thumbnail shows the quick, it was only for a quick second, but according to they showed this in the documentary, where, you know, they found that, you know, like Malcolm X killer was in a Cory Booker campaign video for like about a split, you know, a couple of seconds. And, you know, the thumbnail that I have on, you know, this video shows that picture of that. Munch Bar, hey. Mickey Ficky, hey. Oh, yes. Enjoy your food. You're making me hungry. I'm probably going to go find me something to eat a little later. I think I'm going to eat some salmon. It's an accusation, he said to the Post. They never spoke to me. They just accused me of something I didn't do. That's what so-called William Bradley said. Okay. In 2015, the Post described Hagan as now living a quiet life in Brooklyn. And old LinkedIn ad page says that from 1992 through 2003, he assisted professional staff of a public social service agency dealing with the homeless population. Yeah, he was a homeless So that sort of describes Ayer, what Ayer is doing now. And like I said, let me show y'all the picture once again so you'll know how Ayer looks. Like on the documentary, he looks a little differently. This is how he looks in old age. And I'm not, you know, showing you, you know, for any, malicious reasons. You know, I just want y'all to be familiar with what's going on. So that's all. All right. So let me get on back to this information here, because I'm already a little too swift for myself. Okay. So back in February, in fact, it was February the 21st. of 1965, Malcolm X was gunned down by um, while giving a speech on the previous situation that had already occurred, that just occurred, and that was the house bombing. And do you know that they tried to accuse Malcolm of bombing his own house? Okay, according to Betty Shabazz. Okay, so Malcolm he stated that he, and this was at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, New York. Malcolm, whom because of his eloquent speaking skills was the person responsible for the branding and the growth of the Nation of Islam. So let's stop right there for a minute. The Nation of Islam would not be what it is today if there were no Malcolm X. Because before Malcolm X, I think the nation might have had like maybe 7,000 members, and then it grew astronomically. It grew so well, they were opening in business. Like according to the documentary, they were opening all kinds of Muslim businesses, from like clothing to, restaurants, because of the special dietary requirements. And the membership grew drastically because of Malcolm X's eloquent speaking skills. So Malcolm X, was the brand, and was was the face, and was responsible for the growth of the Nation of Islam. Okay, now Malcolm, it's like I said, he inspired many to convert from, because back in those days we primarily only had, like in terms of black religions, we only had Christianity. And that was a hard thing to get Christians. Let's just think, because I can remember how some of the older people thought about Islam. They weren't with it because they primarily only knew forms of Christianity, or denominations of Christianity. So like that was a hard sell for So let's look at like Malcolm, because his eloquent speaking was able to convert people from Christianity into Islam, which was like, because basically Elijah Muhammad was having issues. They were struggling with that because a lot of people were anti-Islam. They were anti-Islam. So when Malcolm came along, it was like a blessing, a curse at the same time, for Elijah Muhammad. Okay, now let me just go into a little brief personal history about Malcolm X real quick. Okay, Malcolm X, which was also Malcolm Little. He was born Malcolm Little. Okay. Now HAJJMALIKEL-SHABAZZ is his Arabic name. That's his name currently now, that most people really, just don't know. But his Muslim name was HAJJMALIKEL-SHABAZZ. Before he was better known as Malcolm X. Now, Malcolm was born May 19, 1925. He died February the 21st of 1965. Okay. And he was a Muslim minister and a human rights activist who was a popular figure during the civil rights movement. He is best known for his staunch and controversial Black radical advocacy, and for a time spent as the vocal spokesperson of the Nation of Islam. Born Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska, he relocated to New York City in 1943, following spells at a series of foster homes after his father's death. And his father was killed. His father was killed off by, they said some white people. They said that his father was ran over by, or they said that he was ran over by a trolley car. And if you actually watched any other Malcolm X movies, Malcolm X's father was sort of like Malcolm X. He had that mouthpiece, and he was pro-black spokesperson, and he was speaking out as well. So Malcolm, it was definitely in his DNA. Okay, so after his father's death, his mother was hospitalized in a lot of mental hospitals, because she had like problems coping with all that. There, Malcolm X engaged in several illicit activities, eventually being sentenced to 10 years in prison in 1946 for larceny and breaking and entering. In prison, he joined the Nation of Islam, adopted the name Malcolm X, and quickly became one of the organization's most influential leaders after being paroled in 1952. So he was paroled in 1952. Okay, so that's just a little bit of information about Malcolm's personal life before the Nation of Islam. You know, if you saw the movie, he was like, you know, into prostitution, into stealing, you know, like, and he went to a foster home, and, you know, he initially wanted to be an attorney, but because of, you know, he went to a primarily white school, and the white teacher told him that, you know, like, she didn't think that that was a good idea. She didn't think that he would be good at that, and that he should look at doing something, you know, like more labor focused than becoming an attorney. And that broke Malcolm's heart. So Malcolm then went on the, you know, like the road. And that's why we have to be careful. Like with our youth and our children, we can't say that you can't. We got to start instilling them that they can. Because, you know, like when you tell them they can't, or you make something seem difficult or hard, then, you know, like sometimes, you know, people start to believe, you know, they believe that, or, you know, we're actually taking the fire and the hope out of our kids. So we got to, you know, like, I really don't believe in continuing to tell our kids that, you know, they're descendants of slaves or things of that nature. I believe in telling them that they are descendants of great people, inventors, and, you know, like people who did great things, people, scientists, astrologers, you know, like get into our real history of our real ancestors and tell them they came from something great, other than to tell them they came from something that was oppressed. So, you know, because that's, you know, that's just an example of how, you know, like sometimes, you know, we don't give our kids and stuff a chance, you know, by, you know, telling them what they can't do. And I'm gonna take a minute to look at the chat. Detroit, yeah, his name was exactly Marlo Stanfield. I like The Wire. Yes, it was Detroit Red. By any means necessary, absolutely. Yes, Mickey Ficky said yes. Plus, parents should stop calling their children names, i.e., stupid, exactly, stupid, dummy, and stuff, because their children believe that. I mean, especially coming from your parent, whatever a parent tells a child, you know, that's the lasting effect, because, you know, you expect, you know, like when you get out in the world, nobody owes you anything. So, you know, you're gonna face a lot of the negativity and abuse and different things like that from the world. But like your safe haven and your foundation is your family, is your family, your mother and your father and your family. So if, you know, your family is telling you things that are negative, then, you know, like they're gonna, you know, like you tell a child they're bad over and over again, they're gonna believe they're bad. So tell a child, you know, I'm not saying don't excuse no behavior. You know, most definitely don't excuse any bad behavior. Correct that, but, you know, definitely let them know that, you know, they can be as great as they, you know, as they attempt to be. Okay. All right. So, okay. So Malcolm so here's where the problem came in. As you can see, Malcolm was the brand. Malcolm was the, you know, the main focus of the Nation of Islam. And, you know, egos. So egos got in the way. And you may have had, you know, according to the documentary, I probably saw ego on both sides. I saw ego on Malcolm's side, as well as I saw ego coming from Elijah Muhammad's side. So Malcolm overshadowed Elijah Muhammad, and most conspired that, you know, and they also was saying that like Malcolm was second up, you know, because Elijah Muhammad had kids, and, you know, and they were loving that money, and they were loving, you know, like how the Nation of Islam and stuff was building. They were loving that luxurious new lifestyle that they were living. So Malcolm, you know, so they looked at the oldest son or whatever. They stated that, you know, he sort of looked at, you know, didn't like Malcolm too much. Because, you know, he felt that he should have carried on his father's legacy, whereas, you know, it was stated, or the rumor was that Malcolm was going to be second in command, that Malcolm was the next to take the throne, or Malcolm was the next to, you know, be over the nation of, to be the minister of the Nation of Islam. So, you know, it was a lot of there was a lot of things going on, and they said that was sort of like the seed of the falling out of Malcolm and Elijah Muhammad. So Malcolm X himself stated that Elijah Muhammad and NOI has had placed him on a hit, placed a hit on him, and that he was a marked man. In fact, and I'm gonna play that in just a minute. In fact, when Malcolm made it to the Audubon ballroom that day, he said he didn't feel right. In fact, he had got a call the night before stating that, they knew where he was because he was trying to hide out. He had went to the Hilton and stayed there. He was trying to hide out, and somebody actually called the Hilton and was like, "We know where you are." So that made him feel very uncomfortable. So he called Betty Shabazz, his wife, and told his wife to bring the kids to the Audubon the next morning. And we got to the Audubon. The guest speakers that were supposed to speak along with Malcolm did not show. The guest speakers did not show. They stated that there was not one uniformed officer present. There was not one uniformed officer present at the Audubon that morning. None of the invited speakers showed up. None of the invited speakers showed up. And I'm just trying to. Okay, so like already, there was suspicions. So it's like as soon as Malcolm got to the podium, and they called it something else, but I call it a podium. As soon as Malcolm got to the podium and gave the greeting, Assalamu alaikum, there was like noise or disruption in the background. And Malcolm was like, hey, come on, can y'all be cool? And y'all know the famous statement of what was said. It was like, get your hands out my pocket. And then the next thing you know, they said that this big burly, dark skinned guy came up with a shotgun and shot. And like everybody, a few people noticed that a few people noticed other shooters, but the main focus, or the one that was most noticed, was the big burly dark skinned guy with the shotgun. Okay, now if y'all saw the pictures of Muhammad Abdul Aziz, who was Butler, who was one of the falsely accused people, and then Khalil Islam, who was a light-skinned brother, and this was 15X Johnson. None of them fit, and not even Talmadge, 8 hair, fit those descriptions of a big burly dark-skinned guy. Okay, plus they said that there were 3 people. Somebody stated that when they came into the Audubon before everything had started, there were 3 men on the front row, and they were all reading newspapers. So there were 3 men sitting there in the front row reading newspapers. My mind would have been like, this is strange. My mind would have been like, this is strange. So there were a lot of signs that, something was going to occur that day. But, it was like that disruption. Get your hands out of my pocket. Then the next thing, the big burly dark skinned guy came up. And the news clip, or the clip that they had for the documentary, the actual big burly dark skinned guy, actually, while they had Talmadge in the handcuffs, was the one that walked by the screen. He politely, first you could see him standing in the audience, like he was a part of the brawl. And then the next thing you know, he politely just eased and walked by the screen and went on about his business. Okay. So, that's what happened. But later discovered that there were actually 2 uniformed officers there. Okay. Now let me tell y'all something. This would trip me out. And let me just stop for a minute. I'm gonna give y'all some details here, because this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. Malcolm's head of security, the person who had risen to the top ranks as head of Malcolm's security, was Eugene Roberts. Let me see if I got a picture of Eugene Roberts. Hold on, y'all. Let me see if I got a picture of Eugene Roberts. Let me read this article, because I just want to say it verbatim. And then, I want y'all to know I'm just not making this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Let me get rid of some too. Okay, let me get rid of that. I can get rid of that. All right. All right, I'm about to screen share this. And I'm going to read it verbatim so you won't think it's just coming from me. All right. So this article right here is, see, who is this from? Face to Face America. This article is from an article from Face to Face America. All right. Okay, the little known story of Eugene Roberts, who was also known as Gene Roberts, the Black New York Police Department's secret agent who infiltrated Malcolm X inner security and the Black Panther Party. So this same guy, Gene Roberts, not only infiltrated Malcolm X and that the New York branch of the Nation of Islam, but this guy also was a secret agent and an infiltrator of the Black Panther Party. Okay, now I'm going to get into this article, but let me also say, for those of y'all who watched the documentary, or if you go back and watch the documentary, make sure y'all look at the part where, you know, notice that they said, okay, so this is New York. So these are agents from New York. So New York is totally separate from what I'm about to say today. So these are additional people. All right. They said that in Chicago, alongside Elijah Muhammad, and they showed a picture of the top 10 people out of the top 10, the top 10 people of you know, the Nation of Islam in Chicago. 3 of them were secret agents. And every time they said that, they were always focused on, I think this guy's name was John Lewis, and then they focused on Elijah Muhammad. But out of 10, at least three of them were secret agents. So we're talking about there may have been 7 people that weren't secret agents, a part of the top tier of the Nation of Islam in Chicago. Now, I just want y'all to meditate on that for a minute. Meditate on the top, out of the top 10 people of the Nation of Islam, the main headquarters of the Nation of Islam, 10, like out of the 10 people, 3 of them were secret agents, FBI secret informants, FBI secret agents. Okay, now let's go back to New York. In New York, at the Audubon that day, there was this one guy, Gene Roberts, who I'm about to read the article on, also known as Eugene Roberts, which was a New York police office police informant. But there were also 9 other, which the 9 were FBI, inside COINTELPRO FBI informants. So y'all get it? Y'all get it? That's a lot of informants. That means that these organizations are filled with primarily a lot of informants. I want y'all to think about that. I want y'all to soak that in. I want y'all to think about all these organizations, every organization. I want y'all to just start thinking that in every Black organization, somebody in there is an informant. Like, start playing the game. If you know, like, if you find an informant, point them out. Try to figure out who in there is the informant, especially if it's something like a clandestine type of situation, or it's supposed to be something like a clandestine situation. I'm going to tell y'all some stuff about, I'm going to tell y'all some stuff about J. Edgar Hoover probably tomorrow that's going to blow your minds, okay? Okay, I'm going to tell y'all some stuff about that y'all probably didn't know about J. Edgar Hoover. But back to this Eugene, who's the head security, the one that walked right next to Malcolm X, the one that slept overnight with Malcolm X, the one that gave Malcolm X the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, the one that said, you know, like he had gotten tired because he said that he knew that Malcolm was already gone and asked somebody else to take over. This guy was a New York police officer, secret agent. But the little known story of Eugene Roberts, the Black New York Police Department secret agent who infiltrated Malcolm X inner security and the Black Panther Party. Okay, a black man who doubled as a detective for the police force managed to infiltrate the security detail of organizations of Afro-American Unity, OAAU. Am I sharing? Okay. Founder Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party, two entities for the African cause, and worked against its gang. So these people, they were in there, but they were working against his gang. They were people who were calling their handlers, or calling their I forgot what he called it, and giving them information on a daily, nightly, second, moment to moment basis. Eugene Roberts, also called Gene Roberts, was close by when Malcolm X was killed at the Audubon Ballroom on February the 21st of 1965. In fact, Roberts was photographed trying to resuscitate Malcolm X at the assassination. He was a man known affectionately within the organization of Afro-American Unity, OAAU, an organization Malcolm X founded to bridge the gap between Africans on the continent and those in the diaspora, as Brother Gene, only to later be confirmed as an undercover agent with the Bureau of Special Services and Investigation, BOSSI, in the New York Police Department. BOSSI was a super secret political intelligence unit nicknamed the Red Squad. And when Roberts infiltrated the OAAU, he managed to become one of Malcolm's chief secretaries while being a New York police undercover cop. Two of the three men convicted of killing Malcolm X, Norman Butler, that's Norman Butler, Muhammad Abdulaziz, and Robert 15X Johnson, which is now known, the one that died in prison, Khalil Islam, were most certainly not at the scene of the crime. So the two men convicted of the crime, Islam and Aziz, Butler and Johnson, were not even at the scene of the crime. They were not there, family. They weren't even there. How about that? They were not even there. Okay, so we're most certainly not at the scene of the crime. The evidence points to a confluence to three groups involved in Malcolm X assassination: institutional forces, NYPD, FBI, and CIA, etc. The Nation of Islam and elements within Malcolm's own circle after his split with NOI. The Nation of Islam and the elements within Malcolm's own circle and his split with the NOI, the Nation of Islam. What is clear is that all these groups had a vested interest in eliminating Malcolm X, who had at the time of his death become a potent threat to the established system thanks to his mobilization of disgruntled blacks as well as the working class. His growing partnership with Ghanaian President Kwame Nkrumah helped birth the OAAU, the organization founded by Malcolm, molded on the Continental Organization of African Unity of Independent African States. And there is a picture of Gene Roberts with Malcolm via the conspiracyblog.com. So this that picture is compliments of the conspiracyblog.com, and I think I might check them out a little later. After the formation of the OAAU and Muslim Mosque, Inc., MMI, Malcolm prepared to release a new political program which would have likely included voter registration drives, local organizing against police brutality, and a call for the United Nations to denounce America's racial practices as human rights violations. He was gunned down on the very day he was set to unveil it. To note, so he was set to unveil that on the day that at the Audubon Ballroom that day. To know for sure what roles infiltrators such as Ray Woods and Roberts played in Malcolm's assassination, the New York Police Department has released surveillance files and reports of undercover officers in the years surrounding the assassination, but the department has repeatedly refused to release them. So, you know, like another one of the undercover security agents was Ray Woods. I gotta write him down. Okay, so Ray Woods and Eugene Gene, also known as Gene Roberts, were security for Malcolm X. And they also were secret agents for the New York Police Department. So in 1970, the police learned about COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO is not actually people. COINTELPRO means tricks. It means tricks. So, like, you know, that's one of their biggest tricks. And you know what's so sad, family? They use the same tricks on us over and over again. The Black Panther Party. They use the same tricks on us over and over again. Because while we're thinking that the enemy is of a different race, and, you know, not our kin folks, the enemies a lot of times are our kin folks, fams. I'm sorry to have to tell you. You know, a lot of times, you know, our kin folks are the ones that sell out or are hired, you know, to take the information back, you know, to, you know, these alphabets or these different organizations and stuff to prevent us from, you know, like accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not going to talk about Martin Luther King, but we all know that speculation that, you know, there was some, you know, that person standing right next to him, we all know that name, was also responsible, or COINTELPRO, or part of the secret special agent for Malcolm X, and that was Jesse Jackson. I said I wasn't going to tell, and I snitched anyway. But anyways, so, like, once again, in 1970s, the public learned about COINTELPRO and other secret FBI programs directed towards infiltrating and disrupting civil rights organizations during the 1950s and 1960s. J. Edgar Hoover, who led the government's COINTELPRO, said, "There must be a goal of preventing a coalition of militant Black nationalist groups, prevent the rise of Black Messiah that can unify and electrify the Black nationalist movement, along with preventing militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to the community." So another one of the things is, just like you can't, like, just like after Martin Luther King died, all of these conspiracies and this, and, you know, and slandering of his character came out. A lot of times after these people die, they throw out a lot of, like, conspiracies and slander to, you know, like to make us not look at them as great. Because what they don't want us to do is don't want people to be like, if Malcolm did it, I can do it. If Martin Luther King did it, I can do it. They wanted us to fear. They wanted us to fear being a leader. But here's the thing that I always say. We don't need one leader. We need multiple leaders. In fact, we all need to rise up and to become leaders. But we need to learn how to work together. We need to learn how to work together. And, you know, we don't have to be militant. Because, like, I'm just going to say, we don't have a high artillery. We don't have weaponry to be militant. And, you know, it's better to live and to be able to tell a story, or live and to be able to accomplish something. It's like some people want you to become militant so they have an excuse to take you out. Get it? They want an excuse to take you out. So that'll make their day if you become militant, because then they can spray up the place and take out a lot of people at one time. So, you know, I don't think that militant, in my opinion, is the way to go. I think that I'm more like Martin Luther King, you know, because actually, when you look at results, Martin Luther King was able to produce more results than Malcolm, because Martin Luther King got the Fair Housing Act. Martin Luther King was able to produce the 1966 Civil Rights Act. You know, because of, you know, the civil rights era, and because of a lot of things that, you know, Martin headed, we got results. Like we can now go into any restaurants we want. We don't have to sit at the back of the bus. You know, we can drink out of any public water fountain, in which I don't care to, but now we can drink out of any public water fountain. So, you know, Malcolm, because of his you get more bees with honey, he was able to get more results, you know, and I feel like a more militant way would have produced more like deaths, actually. You know what I'm saying? Massive deaths. Okay, so that's just my opinion. I'm just a messenger. Okay, so J. Edgar Hoover, who led the government's COINTELPRO. Okay, so, and I'm gonna tell y'all, you know, like, let's just think for a minute. I want y'all to remember this because I'm gonna give y'all some more information later about this J. Edgar Hoover person. But let's just say, how would you assume that J. Edgar Hoover came up with this mastermind COINTELPRO cooperative program that he had? How in the heck did he come up with this? How did his imagination lead him to that? And we're going to get into that later, folks, because it's going to add up a little later. Not today, probably tomorrow, but I'm going to tell you, I got to teach y'all something about J. Edgar Hoover. But Roberts is said to have grown close to Malcolm, and though he was reporting on him, had become to be fond of him, and his death haunted his wife for decades, who was also in the Audubon ballroom. He is said to have been distracted by the assassins who killed Malcolm, and when he shot one was also shot at the except the bullet missed him by inches. He said he shot at one of them and the bullet missed him by inches. But y'all, here is the scene. And right here, I don't know if y'all can see my cursor or my pointer or whatever, but right up here in the corner, that's Eugene Roberts. Yeah, there we go. The other computer is slow. But right up here, this small little frame picture where you see the man giving the mouth to mouth, that's Eugene Roberts. So Eugene Roberts was also responsible for the resuscitation. This is when he told them that he said he already knew that Malcolm was gone, and he just said, you know, I'm tired. Can somebody else take over? And that's when Betty Shabazz dropped to her knees to attempt to give her husband resuscitation, but broke down. And you know, that's from the article "The Violent End." This is a Life issue on the assassination of Malcolm X. Those pictures. But after Malcolm fell, Roberts was promoted to detective. So after Malcolm was killed, Robert was promoted to detective by the New York Police Department, and in which he infiltrated the Black Panther Party. Roberts became a founding member of the New York chapter of the Black Panthers Party. So Roberts, y'all see that in the purple? Roberts became a founding member. He was one of the founders of the New York chapter of the Black Panthers Party. A whole special agent, a whole New York police detective was founder of the Black Panther Party. I had to slow that down so y'all can, that'll soak in a little bit. In July 1968, but he had to report on to the handlers at Boss. So he still had to report to the handlers at the Boss, which was he reported to the same New York police people. Nothing significant, usually Black power rhetoric, he said. He is said to have noted on one occasion. He was like, pretty much they were just doing Black power rhetoric. And here we go right here with the picture of Roberts in the front and the Black Panther Party. Yeah, Martin. Yeah, we weren't going to stop it. We need to not stop now. I mean, we need to just continue to get what we need to think. And we got to, start, keep going for the sake of our ancestors. Exactly right, Monica G. Okay, so when another undercover cop claimed to have managed to steal some dynamite that Lumbaba Shakur, partner of Afeni Shakur, had stashed, switching the real sticks for duds, before bombs were planted at the police station, adding that a Panther sniper team was assigned to pick off cops as they fled from one precinct after the planned explosion, and that a gunfight ensued between a highway police team and the Panther snipers where they escaped. It must have surprised Roberts. So they're trying to say that it must have surprised Robert when they stole that dynamite, that Lombardi Secure managed to steal some dynamite. It must have surprised Roberts that the partner of which was the partner of Afeni Secure. Afeni Secure for a long time. She's the one. She's now in Colombia. Colombia, I think she's in Colombia right now under, like under protection or whatever. And she escaped from prison. And, Trump is trying to, manipulate the Colombians to get her back over here, and which I hope they never do. All right. But Afeni Secure, she was, of course, one of the well-known members of the Black Panther Party. And she was also friends with Tupac's mom. Is it Asante Shakur? I get them mixed up. Asante Shakur, Afeni Shakur. I get them mixed up now, y'all. So, but I know both of them have A's and they are Shakur. So correct me if y'all know the difference. But one of them is this might be Tupac's dad. This might be Tupac's mom. Afeni might be Tupac's mom. I'm not sure. We'll have to look that up and see. I get it because I think Ashanti is the one that's in Colombia. I get their names mixed up. That's me, y'all. Like, that's me. My fault. But we'll, like, if y'all know, just put that in the chat, so I can get my mental straight. But what they're saying is, like, he must have been surprised when they did all that. In the ensuing hearing, the prosecutor's case was compromised with inconsistencies. Robert had never testified in open court before. He was kept on the stand for 6 weeks, and when he testified about the New York Panthers as being rebels without a clue and couldn't have pulled off the crime they were being accused of, he was viewed as unhelpful to the prosecution as a witness. When they put him on the stand in the first place, it was over for him. He already knew it was over for him, because when they take he had been from organization to organization. So in order for them to take him and put him in the public, they were already ready to get rid of him anyway. So, like when they put him on the stand, it was over. Because they thought, they were feeling like he wasn't being upfront and honest. They felt like he, just like they said, they felt like he knew something and wasn't telling everything. Okay. But they looked at him, they viewed him as unhelpful to the prosecution as a witness. For the defense, he was mortifying. While being cross-examined by 6 white radical lawyers, they denounced him as the trusted slave who would whip the other slaves when required. Y'all hear that? That's what they think of sellouts. The trusted slave who will whip the other slaves when required. So these people are the same thing as what they call the slave, what they call them? I forgot. The trusted slave. I forgot what that trusted slave is called. And the secret agent forced them to sell their souls and forfeit their manhood. Exactly. Okay. So in the end, 21 of the Panthers were charged with conspiring to blow up several police precincts, part of a railroad, the Bronx Botanical Garden, and 5 Manhattan department stores. However, Roberts, who had taken the lead in the department store operation, was aware no one he knew had done anything more than window shop, must have been surprised as the Panther. The Panther 21 trial was the longest. It was called the Panther 21 trial. The Panther 21 trial was the longest and most expensive criminal prosecution in the history of New York, lasting some 2 years, with the jury voting not guilty on all counts after 2 hours of deliberation. And that's why they were so mad at those people. Some of them people, those Black Panthers and stuff, had to leave the country and stuff like that. But there's also a picture right here of Eugene Roberts standing right there facing out. And this is via Esquire. Roberts during the Panther trials also showed how undercover role was nearly discovered when a Panther came close to touching electronic equipment under his shirt while tapping a heart-shaped target to the garment. After the frightening experience of the near discovery in the gun case, he said he no longer wore electronic transmissions equipment to Panther meetings. Several former cops said that Roberts struggled during his remaining years on the job. After the trial, Roberts was assigned the ordinary detective duty in Bronx. He developed a drinking problem, which eventually cost him his marriage. He was given medals, but never promoted. Roberts gave an interview for a 1994 documentary called Brother Minister, The Assassination of Malcolm X. He noted that there are a lot of people in the Black community that consider me a traitor to my race and community, and I felt then and I feel now I would get some negative feedback and I would get some positive feedback. I felt that it was a job I felt was the right thing to do. He died alone in Virginia in 2008. So Eugene Roberts, the traitor, the special agent, died in Virginia in 2008. So he's gone. So he can't serve as a witness right now either. Because now I feel like he may, depending on how he feels about his life, tell the truth at this point. But of course, he's not here to tell the story. So there we go. Okay, let me take a look at the chat. Yeah, Uncle Tom, exactly. I could not think of that for nothing in the world. Okay, so, there we go. We've concluded that most of these people were COINTELPRO. Like I said, even with Elijah Muhammad at the mosque, they said out of the 10, at least 3 of them were special agents. So, and this goes deep. And this guy, he founded the Black Panther, organization. But let's talk about a little bit something that matters. I'm so glad that, because of Ayers' affidavit. And let me ask y'all this. I'm going to ask this question. This is food for thought. Okay, let's just go over a few things. Let's just slow down and go over a few things. They purposely knew that they had the wrong 2 people arrested. They were told where the right people came out of. And if you look at the documentary, there was protection around the alleged killer. There was protection around, give me just a moment so I can make sure I get their names right. Let me pull up something else. Give me just a moment. There was a lot of protection around William X. There was a lot of protection around William X. In fact, when you look at the documentary, when they discovered that, like William X, after he had died and everything, and, they gave William X the shotgun, the alleged killer, the one that shot the bullet that actually killed Malcolm, they gave him a hero type of homegoing celebration, a hero type of funeral. They had him in the little glass buggy, rolling around the city to his cemetery plot. So they went all out for him for his death, and they said that he was honored. And he was honored because his wife owned a boxing ring, and they said that he helped little boys in the community. They said he was honored because of the good that he had did in the community. Okay, yes, Yes, you help little boys. I know a lot of people with boxing rings to help little boys, but still, that's like not the they still don't get that hero type of homegoing celebration. So it makes me say, huh, and it makes me wonder, and then it makes me wonder too. Like it was just like when this guy, when I'm getting my names mixed up because it's all these Abdullahs and stuff. I'm sorry, y'all. When Ra Abdullah, the independent investigator, when he was, and I'm gonna get his name right in a minute because I like let's do this integrity with integrity. But in other words, when he said he rode by the house plenty of times and he wanted to stop, and he said right before he got ready to stop, he had received word that like William X had died. And here we go right here. Who is William X? I'm gonna share this one too. Right, like when he was getting ready to go and interview and ask William X some questions, he got word that William had died. And here we go. Let me give it a moment to load. Okay, who is William Bradley? Okay, now this is William Bradley. This is the guy with the shotgun. Look at him real good. This is the person who pulled the shotgun that killed Malcolm X. This is the one that had the shotgun that killed Malcolm X. And he had also had a life of, long history of crime as well. His name before he got converted to Muslim. It was William Bradley, William X, and then Mustafa. So Malcolm X remains an icon, especially to the Black community protesting for the civil rights. The charismatic, powerful leader was ultimately assigned not long after Malcolm broke away from the Nation of Islam, NOI. Malcolm X, or HAJJMALIKEL-SHABAZZ, was not shot and killed on February the 24th, 1965 Malcolm HAJJMALIKEL-SHABAZZ was shot and killed on 21st February 1965 at the Audubon Ballroom. Talmadge Hayer, Norman 3X and Thomas 15X Johnson were arrested for the murder. However, the case against Butler and Johnson has always been shaky. Now Netflix docuseries Who Killed Malcolm X has stirred up quite... Give me just a moment here. Has stirred up quite a storm, accusing William Bradley, or Al-Mustafa Shabazz, of being the one who fired the sawed-off shotgun, who claimed Malcolm's life. The impact of the docuseries is undeniable, as reports state that the Manhattan DA's office has decided to reopen the case to look at the evidence. In light of newfound interest in Bradley or Shabazz, you might be wondering about who he is, whether he really shot Malcolm, and where is he now. We got you covered in this regard. Okay, there's a picture. Now that's the clip of where he was, in that little short commercial for Cory Booker's campaign. So he ain't been hiding. And you see he's sitting there smiling. He don't look like he got a fear or worry in the world. William Bradley's name cropped up in affidavits filed by Thomas Hagan, Talmadge Hayer, or Talmadge Hayer. The case against Ayer was ironclad, but the ones against Butler and Johnson's were circumstantial. The cases were clubbed together. That's how they were able to convict him. Okay, you said you're not gonna. Yeah, I'm not saying this case closed either. We just following up and we giving all these details. Yeah, it be your own people, exactly. And that's what that's when we're looking for these leaders and stuff like that, we got to start thinking about that kind of stuff. We got to start making sure we shake down. And even here on YouTube, like, they already said they got Russian bots. So some of these people who like are in these chats and you think are black people are not necessarily black people. And just because they're black people do not mean that they're not part of a COINTELPRO operative. So some things, we have to like really start paying more attention about, like why. We have to start asking more questions on why. Okay. Later, when he filed the affidavit in 1977 and 1978, he provided the partial names of 4 associates who actually helped in the assassination. Ayer named the shotgun welding man as Willie X. Ayer's lawyer, the famous William Kunstler, determined that Willie X is William Bradley. Despite this, not much was known about William Bradley's whereabouts. Abdul, that's who I was trying to say. Abdul Rahman Muhammad, the man behind Netflix docuseries, comments on how he knew Bradley was responsible, but did not know his new identity after he embraced Islam and his name changed. Who Killed Malcolm X shows us a part of the clip from the day of Malcolm's assassination, where Ayer is being beaten up by the people outside the hall. Muhammad points to a finger in the corner. He remarks that it looks like Bradley. So Bradley was also on that picture, in the background. The figure is then shown to step away from, like he walked right across the camera, away from the scuffle, across the frame of the camera, close his coat. He closed his coat and walked away. Muhammad's search for Bradley yielded results when he asked a man from Newark about Bradley. The man gave him Bradley's new identity as Al-Mustafa Shabazz. Muhammad dug into Shabazz's records, seeing charges of aggravated assault and terroristic threat. In fact, studying Shabazz's court records shows that individuals had quite a few run-ins with law. A baseball star at Southside High School, which is now known. Southside High School was named, then renamed after Malcolm X. It's now Malcolm X High School. Shabazz was responsible for holding up a bank in Livingston in April 1968, along with 2 others. Although his accomplice was convicted, the charges against Shabazz were dropped, leading to speculations that he might have had connections or be an FBI informant. What y'all think? What y'all think? What y'all think? So here we go again. In order for this man died without being convicted or anything. He died, and then it's just so ironic how when they were right on his heels, all of a sudden now he came up after living his long free life and died. I think that he was if you ask me, my opinion is that this man was an FBI informant as well. However, Shabazz soon saw the inside of a prison cell when he was sent away on conspiracy charges from 1977 to 1980. He was thrown in jail again in 1984 after threatening to kill an East Orange cop, raping a woman, and dealing drugs. By the time he got out of prison in 1998, he had the reputation of being a Newark enforcer who was not to be trifled with. And like when you look at the documentary, they were scared. The people around there were scared to even say anything. And now I see why. I really see why, because he was also a Newark enforcer. And that's what I have been thinking the whole time when they were saying these 4 people, and the fact that they were even willing to go and do these things to Malcolm, to kill Malcolm or shoot these shots at Malcolm. I also started thinking informant. And not just that, like Malcolm said that, Elijah Muhammad had, like put out the hit and stuff like that. And, the way they do it is they say things, that quotes and stuff that come from the Bible, like off with the head, like Moses and stuff like that, according to the documentary. Okay. So, all of these, I'm just like, how could you have killed, like, an influential person like Malcolm, and not been incriminated for it? And how was these Muslims, from the same brotherhood or the same organization as Malcolm in Newark, New Jersey, defending, defending someone who had killed one of the most influential leaders? I just didn't get it. So Shabazz turned his life around, marrying a popular Newark-based social activist, Carolyn Kelly. Carolyn Kelly was the one with the boxing services. He lived in a gated 2-story home on Vassar Avenue in Newark's South Ward. Reports state he had a Mercedes-Benz. This dude had a Mercedes-Benz E-Class sedan. Muhammad had indicated that Shabazz owned a boxing gym in Newark called First Class Championship Gym. But they said, some reports said that his wife actually owned it. In 2010, Shabazz appeared in a campaign video for Cory Booker, who was then running for mayor and is now a senator. When Cory was asked about Shabazz, he stated that he knew him, but did not know the allegations against him. Al-Mustafa Shabazz passed away in 2018. So Al-Mustafa passed away 2 years ago. So did William Bradley kill Malcolm X? And there's the picture of William Bradley right there, coming off his nice little, out of his nice little old home there. Okay, now that we have an idea of who Al-Mustafa is, it should be easier to understand whether he was the one who killed Malcolm X. In order to do so, we have to look at the reports of Malcolm's cause of death. Although 2 other shooters pumped bullets into him, the medical examiner determined that it was the shotgun pellets that had killed the revolutionary leader. Now, according to Ayer affidavit, it was Willie or Bradley or Shabazz who was carrying the sawed-off shotgun. We already know that Muhammad believes Shabazz to be the killer, as does Manning Marable, the author of Malcolm X, A Life of Reinvention. Other researchers have come forward accusing Shabazz as well. Among them are Omar Shabazz, documentary filmmaker, and Carl Evans as well. Among them are as an investigative journalist. However, the New York Times has reported that Evans has dismissed Muhammad's research as unreliable, citing film footage showing Aziz Butler at the location. Remember, Aziz was not there. The 2 men that actually served the 20 years time were not there. On the other hand, Ron Rice, the then New York City councilman, commented that many believe Malcolm shooters to have come from Newark Mosque 25, but he did not know Carolyn's husband to be one of them. Carolyn too slammed the possibility of her husband being Malcolm's killer, saying that people were just looking for a scapegoat. Shabazz himself had denied it, saying it's an accusation. They never spoke to me. They just accused me of something I didn't do. That's what Shabazz said. Shabazz denied it. Okay, while both sides seem to be sure of their cases, the honest truth is that Malcolm's murder was not properly investigated. Who killed Malcolm X shows this. When we see the lectern with the bullet holes has been lying in the basement instead of locked away in evidence rooms. Yes, that lectern, the podium, I call it. Like right after they had a dance, they said that they had a dance at the Audubon. So they cleaned that place up real quick and they still held the dance there at the Audubon. As well, the podium, they had the bullet holes and the chalk circles and stuff. Instead of them taking it down to the police precinct and locking that up in the evidence room, it was downstairs in the basement of the Audubon for all these years. It's still there, according to the docuseries. So Ayer's affidavit and testimony were somewhat ignored, and there is no forensic evidence tying Johnson and Butler to the scene. Like they said they weren't there. There's no pictures or nothing showing them there. So they just it's like they had 2 random guys and they said, okay, tag, you're it. You know, they didn't even try to properly investigate it. They were just like, because it was 4, and so only 3 were held accountable for the crime. And once again, let's look at these innocent men. How could any brother of Muslim brother, how could that shows you what type of person William X or Mustafa Shabazz really was? Because how could you sit there? Because Talmadge tried to tell him, you got the wrong man, you got the wrong brothers. William Mustafa Shabazz is living his life gorgeously in his Mercedes Benz. He's married, he got his business going, knowing that the wrong people are locked up for the murder of Malcolm X. They're living with that scar. They're living with that scorn. He's walking around while people are whispering, but he's intimidated them. And like anybody in that mosque number 25, how could those brothers in that mosque 25 let those 2 brothers from the mosque number 7 serve 20 years, damage the relationship with them and their family, take still 20 years of these brothers' lives and feel that it's right? That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. That is what I am trying to say. Unbelievable. That shows me the character or the frame of mind that these people, because I could not do it. I couldn't let somebody else's life be taken away like that for 20 years away from their family and stuff when I know that they were innocent people. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what I have for today. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to break some stuff down tomorrow from a whole different perspective. I decided to stop here because if I continue, it would have been even longer, because I'm going to break some stuff down, tomorrow. I'm going to cover the Elijah Muhammad tomorrow. And some stuff, like some questions and stuff that we have. Because, it's like, okay, now Mustafa Shabazz is cited to be an informant. Question is, could Elijah Muhammad also have been an informant, the founder of the Nation of Islam? Question. Just a question. So family, I'm gonna take, thank y'all for coming out and and hearing, my commentary on the situation. And I'm gonna have some more for y'all tomorrow. So I'd like to say peace, love, hair grease, peace, love, and light, and peace, love to the family. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Hey, okay. My comments are a little bit behind. I just didn't want to I want to make sure I spoke to everybody. But I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Thank y'all for the support. Like, share, and subscribe. And and I'll see you tomorrow. So peace out.